fired up.
Something.
Convoluted.
It's my new thing.
Beautiful
At least
house.
it's too graphic, and I'm switching it up.
Fun.
That's a big switch. That's a big switch.
Sometimes you gotta go big.
Something about this.
No, not yet. I'm not there yet. I'm only 41. I gotta.
Here we are.
All right, is it me?
Yes.
I'm like getting ready to read. Just drops off.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
it's a prompt. For
Add
today's
that.
date.
Add that. Just add that.
Here a lot.
That is where we stop. That's it with a date.
Yeah.
For some reason, at such. Sometimes I have it fully written out.
He knows his audience.
the first one.
Are you ready?
All set? All right. Good evening. I call to order the Board of Education meeting for Prospect Heights School District 23 for August 15th, 2024 at 7:03 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Butwinski?
Here.
Mr. Gradanis?
Present.
Dr. Long?
Here.
Mrs. McClaney?
Present.
Mr. Nordmark?
Present.
Mrs. Peters? Mr. Novak?
Present. Shall we pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, you did it without the. That's what he said. When you remember the words.
We all know it without the eagle.
Oh, no. I was.
Looks like it looks different. Yeah.
I got that it was painted, but the flag looks like it's maybe hung in a.
It's installed so that it's not poking through the ceiling.
Oh, is
That's
that
the
what
last
it was?
Yes.
Yes. That's what I was
I didn't
missing.
even realize
This
that.
is our first official board meeting in our new renovated space. We've got the beautiful
I didn't know it was my
third
focus
windows
inside.
now. We've got new shades, the painting, our beautiful decorative stuff. We're still on the interior decorating phase, but we're coming along.
Looking pretty sharp.
That looks
Looking
great.
pretty sharp. I really like that. That is
Definitely.
alrighty then. At each regular and special open meeting, members of the public and district employees may comment on or ask questions of the Board of Education. If you would like to address the board, please complete a pink form and give it to Ms. O'Donnell, our recording secretary. All ready for you, Jess.
Etched that myself. Etched that myself.
No, that's great.
The 3D printing.
Yes.
I really
Heavy,
catching my mistakes. All right. We have Karina Santamaria.
Hi, my name is Karina Santamaria. I'm a parent here in District 23. I have a kiddo in 3rd grade and 1st grade. I just want to start off tonight by saying thank you so much for all of your dedication and time on the Board of Education. It's all of you who really have a positive impact on our kids and education in our community, so thank you. I also want to share some exciting news. Over the past few weeks, a group of very energized and passionate parents have come together to begin our work on trying to get the referendum passed. So I'm here tonight to let you know that we've been organizing, having a lot of meetings with community stakeholders, and are hoping that the referendum will be placed on the ballot in November. And I know that is a discussion for tonight, so something that I would like for you to all consider when you do talk about it. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Jacqueline.
Hi everybody. I'm sure you've seen me around here before because this is the 3rd time we'd like to try to do the referendum on the ballot. I still feel very strongly about having that out for the community to vote on. It's something that we do need in our schools, and what I like is that the episodes that you have been airing, it's getting traction. People are getting excited about the changes that they've been seeing all throughout the summer. I think in the time that we've had the referendum being out there, we've also been able to send more information out from the district as well as from us as parents who support it to get the information out there. We were telling them that this is the capital funding that's separate from the referendum because people were thinking, oh, we're still being able to do this. We didn't need the referendum. I said, no. If you look at the presentations and the many informations that you've provided in the past, this was always in the plan, and the referendum is always something we still do need. We have so many families that are coming in, and I like the fact that you put in the last school scene the number of students per teacher to show that it's growing. It's not staying stagnant, that it's not staying at the 20 mark, that we want per student as an average. So seeing those numbers out there is showing that we are expanding in a very limited setting. So for us, as Karina said, there is a group that is still willing to help push the agenda, and we are very passionate about it, and we really do need this for our community. So as it's starting to gain more and more traction as it's been out there, I would still like to try to get this on the ballot for November. Thank you.
All right, moving on to communications.
One of the goals that admin has this year is to work with a consultant group called Compliance Plus. It's run through the Illinois Association of School Administrators, and we've partnered with them to help us to make our procedures and protocols more efficient, more effective. And so part of that is a review of everything, and one of the components that they reminded us that we need to be doing is an annual review of handbooks. So over the summer, the admin team, big shout out to Carrie Hayes as well, our HR coordinator, we have completely reviewed and revised our employee handbook, as well as Craig led a parent and community kind of a focus group on student behavior. So we had parent volunteers, we had staff volunteers, we had student volunteers that came in, as well as administration. And so the result of that was a fresh set of eyes reviewing our student conduct components in our parent-student handbook. And so those are linked in the presentation for the board's awareness, just as we complete that task. This has been a very thorough review this summer, more so. We update every year, obviously, but this was a very thorough, every page kind of a review. So thanks to the parent volunteers and staff and everybody, Craig for leading that, and Carrie for her work on the HR side.
We had students come in over the summer to read policy.
Yes. Yeah.
They're gearing up for the policy committee.
Politics.
It's a great place to be. It's a great great place to be, and you gotta
Future-
start somewhere.
Future of politicians.
Really,
Gotta
we wanted
start
to make
somewhere.
sure that the student handbook
That's
made
cool.
sense to students.
That's really
And so they read through it, they asked questions, they suggested language, we modified some things.
impressive.
I think the most important piece was hearing their side of, you know, so often we read those as parents and we talk to the parents and make it sound professional, but does it make sense to the kids? When they're agreeing that
They're gonna follow the
that they're
rules.
gonna follow the rules, but if it doesn't make sense to them, how can they agree? So they gave that perspective.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
We are also, Buildings and Sites has been monitoring, our construction committee has been monitoring all summer. Earlier this evening, Carol had the opportunity to walk through, and we're just kind of officially at this board meeting saying our buildings are going to be open and ready for our students and staff to return. Teachers have been in this past week. We did new teacher orientation last week, and the office is open. Finishing touches on the exterior construction. Our punch list items on the interior are just about finished. They should be done by tomorrow. Then we'll do punch list items on the exterior. The two kind of ongoing larger projects, we're still finishing up some of the work on the canopies. There are some siding that was ordered that's on back order that we hope to get in by the end of August. And those are the pillars that are gonna look like 3M. That wasn't the design. It's not gonna end up looking that way. But those are on delay, and then we're doing some work in the Sullivan Library on the second story, the Claire Story windows, to ensure a watertight seal. So those are being worked on tomorrow through Monday, and that should all be good to go. Just a huge shout out to our custodial crew. Joanne Brandt is the coordinator of that. Worked with a fantastic crew with Raf and the maintenance team as well. Just a lot of moving parts over the summer. We're very pleased with the relationship we've had with our construction team. And our architect this summer really kept us apprised and on time, and so it's not over yet, but the finish line is in sight, and it's looking really, really good. So thanks to Amy for her coordination of all of that project, but we're really excited to say that our buildings are up and ready to welcome our students and staff back next week. A couple of announcements in terms of some upcoming things in the communications handbook that was also in the in this communications section that was also in the school scene. We are hosting our now third annual District 23 Family Fest on Friday, September the 20th. We have a 4 until 7 o'clock window. Some of the changes that we'll have in this upcoming year, we're going to designate sensory friendly time at the start of the day for some of our families and students to be able to engage in these activities in a more appropriate way for them, a more accommodating way. So that'll be at the beginning part. We'll have some of the attractions just available to certain students. We will have a dunk tank this year, and we will have a game called Meltdown, which is that spinning arm. Have you ever seen it? And then people jump over the arm or duck under the arm and try not to fall off. I mean, I'll be in the dunk tank. I won't be doing the jumping up and down, but that's going to be a really exciting one.
Enjoy your rest.
Yes, yeah. And of course, board is invited to, again, work our popcorn table and meet and greet our new families who we'll be inviting to stop by and get an introduction. Lots of planning underway for that.
I mean, it's tradition that the board president participates in the duck tank.
In the
That's what I
dunk
heard,
tank.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I heard. Board
Second.
president in
Yeah.
the bank.
Sounds like fun.
For at least an hour-long stretch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For a team if I need to.
I think we all just agreed. You do?
The other component that was
That whizzing arm, that sounds kind of dangerous.
normally it's like a samurai blade.
Yeah.
I said make it an inflatable balloon.
Okay, so it's like it's
Yeah,
inside
it's
an inflatable.
It's an inflate. It's not a blade.
Okay.
It's it's an inflatable, yeah.
It's a big enclosed inflatable.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
big
I get it.
inflatable arm that
Parents have just lost their.
will bump.
Yeah, right.
We want to raise the stakes. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise, what's the fun, right? Where's the danger? No, yes, safely. We're also launching a different strategy this year, our Plant Your Roots in D23 campaign. Again, along with our exterior renovations, we have landscaping that will be professionally installed, likely in the mid to end of September, depending on weather. We've got trees and sustainable perennials coming in and some other tall grasses and those types of things. But we've carved out an area for our community to literally plant roots in the district. Kind of came as we were thinking about, well, this could all just be ground cover. And we're like, well, where are we going to get ground cover? I don't need to buy any more hostas. I have enough at my house, and apparently you can break them into multiple. I don't do any of that. I would kill any plants if I had to come anywhere near them, but my wife, green thumb. So we're going to invite folks to, as you're cleaning up your yards at the end of this summer, to break those hostas into mini hostas. I don't know what you call them, and any of the other perennials, and bring those to a table that'll be set out here on February 20th as part of Family Fest.
September.
I'm sorry, September 20th.
What did you say, February?
And then we're working to have those planted. We've got some scouts that are going to help us do a little service that Saturday morning, and our landscape crew will be here Saturday morning. And so we've got a designated area by the breezeway that we will create a Plant Your Roots kind of community space. And lastly, we put out in our school scene a Seeking Local Vendors form. We like to support our families and our local businesses and establishments. This form is open to anyone, really, but certainly if you know of anyone that is a photographer or has a bakery or really provides any kinds of services, please feel free to encourage them to sign up. Then that gives us our running list of local vendors that we can reach out to for things like Family Fest. I'd love to have a photographer walking around taking candid photos of that event. Chris Alms has done a job of that in the past. And
No need for adjectives or modifiers. No.
well, you take photos,
You do.
Yeah.
so we love a professional photographer to take some excellent photos. But that type of a relationship is great. I'd much rather keep those kinds of investments in our community, so we're seeking local vendors via that form.
We talked about that in community relations too, of
Yeah.
having a really cool like directory we could share with families of like local family, like, hey, you need somebody to come split your hostas for you because you'll kill them if you do it yourself.
Yes.
Come to my house
Shelley
and
Angelaccio, on your way.
okay, she can come on over. But like, right, like that
Yeah,
idea of
totally.
like I can open a like was it like a recipe? Like we talked about
Yeah.
this, like having something that like I can just open and be like, oh, I
It's
know.
like the church bulletin.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a way for us to
Like a
Yeah.
District 23 family,
yeah, keep our
like a
community
directory
connected.
of
Yep.
like all these cool people that we can reach out to that keep it within our boundaries of
Yeah.
our people. So we talked about that in community relations too.
I like it.
That's
All good?
communications. Yep.
Moving on to committee reports. Carol is actually going to do this month's buildings and sites.
Okay, this is a couple weeks ago, so the cobwebs are setting in, but, so we discussed, kind of reviewed the summer work that is taking place in the district. The windows and siding at Ross and Sullivan and Grodzki are complete. They weren't quite complete at that time, but they're complete now. The windows in the Sullivan Library were tested earlier and thought they were okay, and have since discovered that there are leaks in it, and so those will be removed and the space cleaned up and resealed and put back. So that I don't have when the time is.
That's gonna start tomorrow, actually.
Okay.
Yep. Be done by Monday.
And then window in the Ross multipurpose room needs to be replaced. The seal is broken on that, and so that will be replaced. I don't have.
Yeah, those are
schedule
still on
that.
order.
Okay.
The glass is still on
Okay.
order, so.
And the punch list is being addressed. The inside is done, almost done, as you said, and the outside will be attacked later. Let's see. Admin is back in the Grodzki building, and the fencing and concrete replacement work behind Sullivan and Grodzki has been done. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but it looks much more clean and crisp and together. So that is complete. The landscape work has begun on the east side of Sullivan and Ross. You might notice that several trees and bushes have been removed, and those will be replaced later in the fall. Let's see. Furniture, the last bit of furniture that has been on order has arrived and has been put at Ross and Ike and the coach's office at Mac. Let's see. Also, administration has been working with representatives of Knorr Industries, which is a vendor for ComEd, regarding retrofitting existing lighting fixtures throughout the district. So this is part of a program through ComEd that provides funds for energy efficiency, so it doesn't cost us anything. So we're looking at summer of '25 to do that project. The Honeywell contract, which is on the agenda, it has been a 1-year agreement has been reached. Oh, we've done 1-year agreements for the past year, and I don't have the rest of that.
Don't worry, I'll get it in finance.
Okay, you get it all. Great. Okay, and then there was some new business that we were just bringing up. The Prospect Heights Natural Resource Commission has secured dollars through a Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity grant for landscaping the book path that's over at Ike and with the Prospect Heights Library. And these dollars were secured through the offices of Mary Beth Canty and Ann Gillespie. Did you get everything?
You did.
Okay.
And you may have noticed, if you watch local public access, the ribbon cutting ceremony for that occurred on Monday of this week. And some of our team were front and center for the unveiling, snipping of the ribbon.
The big scissors?
Yeah, they had big scissors there, they did.
So yeah, it was a really nice
legislators there,
city,
and yeah, it was great.
city, the library trustees, the school district, we all kind of collaborated on that, so yeah, it was a good project.
It was great.
Nice.
Yeah, so you were on these photo ops with Tracy Moll the last couple weeks.
Yeah,
so I saw
yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of opportunities, yeah.
But so she was at that.
Yep,
But
yep,
she's active.
yes, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's been really good, yeah.
But did Mary Beth make it out for any of that
She didn't
stuff?
make it out to
Okay.
that one, no.
All good?
You had to start watching public access.
Mhm.
Mr. Norman, finance.
I do realize there still was public access.
I was like, I don't even know how to get
Yeah, I
to that.
wouldn't know
Like,
how to
how
access
do you
it.
get to public
Wow.
access?
I don't know. I don't know what channel it is here. I
Okay.
think it's
Online.
6, but
Yeah, something low.
Yeah.
Low numbers.
Okay, finance report, you
Yes.
ready? Okay, July 29th, we had a very well organized and riveting finance meeting. We talked about the Empist Managed Network Services contract. Thanks to Alms for putting them in a headlock and Amy coming in to tag team on the negotiations. So that's up for vote tonight.
He cannot take a picture, but he can.
He can negotiate.
you can't
I mean,
negotiate, which
yeah,
is more important.
hands down. So, District Six, thanks you. So three-year renewal at a cost of $105,000 a year with no annual increase. So that's up for vote tonight. I thought that was pretty good news. Second item was the Honeywell that Carol was talking about. They and through Amy's diligence have agreed to give us a $15,000 reimbursement for we'll say services not rendered. So that's coming back to us. But we also took the opportunity, I say we, but Amy, to negotiate a reduction in a new term 3-year agreement. So that'll be up for a vote tonight. More good news. Again, I mean, Amy likes to stack positives up front in these finance meetings. Third item was rental agreements. So we've got a few different groups that rent out different parts of the school district. So those are being up for approval tonight. And then the bulk of the meeting was around the 2025 tentative budget. Amy did a good job sort of visualizing, and Don sort of explaining where we're at, how we're projected to finish the year. We're still trying to get a few funds to close the year, the fiscal year, start the new one here. So that'll be part of the conversation tonight, and I think you'll all appreciate the evolution of that budget because we enjoyed that conversation and asked a lot of questions. Brian, am I missing anything?
No, I think you got it all.
Nice job.
Good job.
Great job.
Alrighty, moving on to NSSEO, Carol.
The meeting for NSSEO was last week. They started out with Shining Star. They acknowledged the coaches for Special Olympics and Chicago Alternative Education League. There were 10 coaches from CART, 4 from Minor, and 5 from Timber Ridge, plus others who volunteer for that over the course of the year. Fostering work with the students year-round, fostering a spirit of inclusion, teamwork, and achievement. And I know that we do that here as well.
It's a pretty great organization.
Yes, it is a great organization. And as you may remember, I think I talked past meetings that NSSEO has started something called Shooting Star, and this is to acknowledge students or staff who have been a part of NSSEO in the past. And so this month it was a student from Elk Grove High School. She just graduated. She started at Timber Ridge in 2nd grade. So they kind of told her story and how she made progress. She was recently awarded a scholarship from Department of Rehabilitation Services and will go to Harvard this fall. Molly Dunn, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, did a presentation on their continuous improvement plan. She reviewed the 5 goals that are part of that plan: student outcomes, social emotional learning, supportive and collaborative, person-centered environment, transition services, and collaborative partnerships. Her presentation looked at data from 2021 through 2024. She went through each goal and highlighted some of the trends that they've been seeing and how they're changing some of the goals going forward. And anticipated that this plan will be incorporated into the strategic plan effort that NSSEO is in the midst of now. Let's see, the superintendent report, Dr. Schnorr reviewed the strategic plan process for the board, for board members, the HYA, which is the group that's facilitating this, will interview each of the board members as they've interviewed member district, admin, and other key people. So that will be in September. The board members will be interviewed. She also talked about NSSEO conducted a contest to come up with for the coming school year. That the winning entry is light the torch every day. With respect to the Olympics this year, and they were supposed to announce the winning employee who came up with that today, I think, because it was on the first day of class, which was today there. But I haven't heard who that person is. Let's see, human resources. There was the first reading of about a dozen policies, which were mostly, 5-year reviews. There wasn't any significant change to any of them. Dr. Carter announced the new assistant principal for minor. Jamie Leonard is that person, and she has worked as a social worker at a number of schools in the suburbs and Chicago, another special ed co-op. Let's see. Then for business services, Gavin, who is the new business person now, because Julie was retired, he reported on, every year NSSEO gives an accounting of the amount of capital, the dollar amount of capital improvements, and then has to report for districts 15 and 54 who left the co-op many years ago, but this is kind of an accounting that they still have an ownership, but as capital improvements are made, it's counted against their what their stake is. So their stake is going down every year. And he did a short update on facility improvements that took place over the summer. They did a lot of lighting replacements in all the buildings, painting, including the boardroom. Minor, I don't know if any of you have gone past minor school. Minor was supposed to have windows and doors replaced this summer. The windows were removed and the space is boarded up, and the windows are on back order apparently. So the contractor has they were to install a temporary window in each of the classrooms, and I think the order for those shipped last Friday. That's a letter went out from the District 25 superintendent. Minor is owned by 25, and so that's.
Yeah, I met with Brian yesterday. I think that the temporary fix is completed now, so they're ready to go. They were ready to go for today.
Yeah.
With that
With
temporary.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had them in
So they
before
did
the
that all
students.
before the first day of school. So they kind of
It just, I mean,
made
it
that
was like a
happen, but
mock-up
the
building.
the long-term
How do you
install of those.
You
order
rip out and
things
not
out
even windows.
before realizing you'll have?
I mean, that makes us very happy that we had the
Yeah.
trailers with all of them delivered before we started. Like,
Thanks, team.
Kudos to
I
good
believe it
planning.
was a subcontractor from whatever. It's,
That's awful.
complicated process.
Yeah, it is. Rip them out. We don't have yet.
What an introduction for the poor
Yeah.
superintendent
Right.
who just started this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, that's San Assessio.
Wow, what a great way to.
When,
Thank you, Carol.
when 15 and 54 left, they're doing those services in-house, right? Or they're not part of a
Yes.
different co-op?
No,
No.
Yeah, they just brought
they're moving
everything
everything
in-house.
in-house.
Yeah, I mean, they're both big districts.
Yeah, I know, they're big, yeah. That they had the ability to do it. Okay.
So their share of the facilities depreciates year
Right,
over
right,
year.
yeah, I remember that part.
Mhm.
Are they close to being done? Like, what's that? Like, how will that? What's
I
that?
have no idea.
Oh, okay.
It's
But
like
I'm sure it's
tens
a
of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not, it's
30-year
not-
process.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. When you pull out of the co-op.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know, and
I mean,
it's
whatever they
like,
negotiate,
you
I
know,
don't
if,
know.
if Anastasio were to sell like, you know, Timber Ridge or something, which I don't think they plan to do.
Right.
So it's kind of just information. I don't know that it will ever come to anything. So.
Thank you,
Moving
Carol. That
on
was
to
great.
the consent agenda. Is it okay if we split out the minutes?
Yes, of course. Yeah. The consent agenda for tonight is the minutes from July 11th, the personnel report, and our policy, press policy 115, second read.
So you're splitting it and we're doing minutes
Yeah,
only
min-
first?
If that's okay.
Yeah, that's
So
fine. I just wanna
items-
I would
make sure.
agree.
Huh?
I'm with you. I
Yeah,
agree with
because
that.
we had a smaller group.
Yeah, we have a motion.
I will move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting dated July 11th, 2024.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Becky, roll call please.
Mrs. Botwinski?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Abstain.
Mr. Novak?
Abstain.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Motion carries.
5-0-2.
5-0-2.
Yep.
Okay, I will move to
We didn't have any
approve
net-
the personnel report and press policy 115.
Second.
Ooh.
Wait, what is
Yeah.
that?
That was.
Oh gosh, where am I going?
Take your pick.
Give them both. Split their.
Go.
Bryn gets it. Bryn gets it.
Whoa, okay.
I was like in unison and everything.
Mrs. Botwinski?
Oh my gosh.
Such enthusiasm.
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
I survived my
Good job.
first month. Everything looked to be in line with previous months.
Mhm.
So I will move to approve the financial report.
I will second.
Alright, super. Yeah.
Okay.
On the finance committee if you don't.
Dr. Long. Roll
Mrs.
call.
Botwinski?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. And moving on to the financial, or superintendent's report, sorry.
Sure. We have two presentations connected to our Building a Better D23 and referendum conversation. We'll start with one that is the third in the series of the options that we investigated, and then the second will be a summary and recommendation. So Christian's got the presentation here on the board. I'll go through this first presentation relatively quickly. Again, it's the third presentation in the series. The component, the common components are repetitive from previous investigations and reports. But in this situation, we were looking at our third option of, are there community partners or other entities with whom we might partner to accomplish our goal of providing full-day kindergarten at Eisenhower? So I think if you go to slide 4, reaffirming our vision, partnerships. Yeah, the next one, just a thank you to, this is just some of the folks. We did reach out to all of our neighboring school districts, a number of public entities, park districts, library districts, as well as a number of our neighboring private churches and other entities. And I thank them for their time. We sent out a mailing and an email, had some phone call conversations, and then had a number of in-person conversations. We're fortunate to be in a community that cares about each other, and we got a very strong level of support for our endeavors, but a very limited availability. But the essential question that we had to ask was, is this even viable? Is there even a partner? And the good news, on the next slide, oh, sorry, these were the groups that we spoke with. The good news is that we do have invitations to continue the conversation and explore with one public school district in the area and one private organization. Because they're a public entity, the other public school district, we're not at liberty to share because they're having their conversations at their board meetings and going to follow their process. But it was a nice, they were both nice conversations to know that there's even something there to pursue. So that was the good news. Next slide, we sort of talk about okay, we knew that, again, in terms of the projections of cost, if we needed to use a referendum to secure the capital needs for this partnership, for operational needs for this partnership, again, we're also suggesting that we include that Eisenhower parking lot renovation and the MacArthur windows and siding. Those two components were, again, just a baseline that don't have to be included, but we've included for comparison's sake. Again, we have these kind of standard operational expenses. The ways to look at it, because it would be a partnership with another entity and we would not own the property, we would not pay for the construction itself. Rather, we would pay a lease agreement, we would pay a monthly, fee for service. So that would come through the operational side more so than a borrowing money for construction costs. So again, depending on how those projects materialize, there may be need for renovation, there may be need for facility enhancement that would increase cost, there may be new construction, and that may be offset on the operational side. So there's a lot of those what ifs and unknowns, but we know that somewhere in that 1.2 million as a placeholder, that's a baseline for us to start having those further conversations. Again, lots of unknowns. We have again, those preliminary conversations, but to further the investigation, we're going to need to talk more nuts and bolts, more of the logistics. We would need to engage with our architect to review the facility, to be involved in giving us an assessment and cost, and those things are likely to, we're going to have to make an investment into that investigation should the board want to do that, and we have stopped short of doing that yet, but we know that there are a number of question marks. On the next slide, we talk about sort of the position that puts us in. Again, it's a very estimate. We know that it would be a little bit lower of a cost than even our MacArthur project, but again, that's just sort of with the estimate that we're working on currently. I think that our recommendation is to pursue this as a possibility. It's a parallel possibility. This kind of answers that question. We need to be ready for a what if at some point in the future. So at this point, the recommendation would be, if the board wants us to pursue this as a possibility. We'll connect with these partners as well as with our architects. I would come back in September with a timeline and sort of a cost estimate of what that process might look like, so that the board has an understanding of what's the outlay of time and energy that's going to go toward this project if you wanted to pursue that either as a primary or as a parallel path.
What kind of time frame do you think we'd be looking at for a lease?
So,
Number of years, I don't mean like.
oh, I'm sorry, like when it would happen.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense for us to agree to anything less than 10 years.
That's what I was thinking.
But I think we've been in, as you all know, we've got some of our contracts with partners are 25, 30 year long. My guess is we would want to keep it as long as is feasible for us, but I know that, again, that's one of those negotiation points that the partner may not want to lock up their space for that long, and we may not want to be committed to them for that long. So I would estimate a 10-year window.
Leasehold improvements are capitalizable though, right? Not operational.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah,
No, it's
like lease
You had
holdable.
talked about renovations
Yeah.
and things
Right.
like this. This would be upgrading the lease space, which would be capitalizable over the span of the lease term, no?
Yeah, that we would pay that back over the course
Right.
of the lease.
Right, it would be a capital.
Or
Yeah,
It would be,
but-
right.
Thank you.
But the entity would have to own the.
They would do it and we would.
They would have to
pay
own
additional
because
fees.
it's
I
their
thought-
facility.
Their facility.
So we make payment toward it. Yes.
There are different types of improvements. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
I apologize for not thinking about this question till now, but do you think in this case the 1.5 may be impacted on the operations side differently because of having to pay for the lease and operations? Or are you not sure yet?
Yes, I mean it's a big what if.
Okay.
One of the scenarios, again, we talked about a partnership with another school district. Hypothetically, for anyone who's watching or thinking, hypothetically, it's a shared service that they may not necessarily be our teachers that we hire that District 23 is in charge of. It may be a joint agreement, and so we pay proportionately. That's going to impact, we would pay as a participant in this partnership, we pay X, and for that we get these services. Food service, custodial, instruction, administration, transportation, right? All of those components can either be negotiated to be us, District 23 provided, or included in the package of the lease agreement.
So then does that mean, and I don't know the answer, could that mean that we are then bound by their teacher contract, their starting salary, like all
Yes.
of that then?
Can you go to the next slide? Yes.
Okay.
I think that's, when we look at it through then that pros and cons, the benefit is it would provide us the space, it would give us those parking lot and traffic flow improvements that we desperately need at Ike. And again, it's from a referendum campaign perspective, it's obviously, whatever it's going to be significantly less than our capital project, because we're not going to be asking for the total dollars up front. We'd be asking for an ongoing rate increase. On the flip side, next slide please. That's that investment that we make in a non-District 23 entity. Those investments of capital improvements belong at the end of the day to somebody else. There's potential for limited flexibility, right? Because it's not our building, that's not our food service contract, so we don't have as direct a say in what we're going to provide for lunch as we do when we own that service, right? Anything you're going to, and all of these items are negotiable, but I think just conceptually it's sort of like if you're going to live in somebody else's house, or you're gonna agree to park your car in your neighbor's garage, you're gonna have to live by some of the rules that they put up, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it happens, and we have lots of partnerships with NSSEO and other entities. It's just that's a component that doesn't exist in the same way if we own our own properties. So I just think it's something that we think about. I think again we're still looking at a relatively limited enhancement. Again, it meets our needs. It would solve the problem today. Where does it put us in 10 years? Where does it put us as a district in 15 years for potential changes in legislation or services we want to offer? Again, if we don't own it, we're bound by the terms of a contract and would have to fix that at some point. And then again, just more broadly, it's not, the reasons we don't like it as much is because it isn't a continuity of our grade level centers, our service provision. It adds another transition for those EC kids. And again, the same as in the previous option, those option 2 and this option 3 doesn't solve as many of the issues that we've identified as needs.
There's still a referendum, it's just less.
Yeah, right.
We did historically have ECDEC, was it? Over at, was it Harper, like over on
They were at
North
Harper
Road.
College.
I thought that was a
Just
very
for 2 years.
successful
Yep.
2 years,
partnership.
yeah.
Understood.
Yes,
understood.
yes.
And the partner, the public school partner that is anonymous, are we allowed to say that they are, if they are not another feeder district in the 214? Are we allowed to?
They're a neighboring district.
Okay. And newer building, are we allowed to say that or not? We're not
I
sure
think that the
what
vision there is a potential for a new building, new construction. But at this point, we've only had sort of like a what if, kind of where we're thinking we're going, where you think you're going, and could we collaborate together to make that happen? So we haven't put any more specificity to that.
Understood.
Yeah.
And something like that, just in these very early on conversations, would they be looking, so 'cause I may have spoken too quickly on the GASB 87 issue, but is that more where they would be looking for us to share some construction costs, or really more of just sort of paying for, we're going to send however many students over there and just kind of share operating expenses too soon?
We've talked about those are the 2 paths we would go down. You could do a fee for service. We're going to send our 120 kids to them. We pay X per student, and it's off-site instruction by a third party. Everything from that to us putting our own teachers there and facilitating independently within their building, to us co-owning or investing in that space. That is a potential if they wanted to invite us to do that. That would be something that we could consider, where we would actually then invest in the construction, and that's a different kind of an ask, but we'd pay for our proportionate share of that.
Are you thinking that would be EC there, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, EC, because it's primarily our, especially in this scenario, would be our half-day programs. So that changes the scope of kind of the services. We don't have to do food, lunch, some of the other activities. And then that would be really, in essence, it frees up the space at Eisenhower to convert those classrooms to full-day K, so that all of kindergarten is together on one campus.
The religious facility, the space there, is it built as classrooms now?
Some of it is.
Okay.
Some of it is, and some of it would need to be renovated, retrofitted to modernized. If you recall, Deb Wilson had investigated this way back when and had partnered with another local entity in order to bring it up to code, would have had to install a sprinkler system, and that in and of itself was really kind of cost prohibitive. So we haven't yet engaged the architect to come in and to walk the facility with us. But that would be our first step for that partnership would be, okay, let's see how viable the space is. We see the space, we know what it looks like, but not
Did
as
you see sprinklers?
I did.
Are
Yeah.
they operating as a religious entity for that space, or is it
No,
an empty
that space,
that's just a
they felt
school
that that
type
space would be available for them to give up. Certainly to give up during the school hours. They may need to keep it for childcare during services or whatnot, but, and again, that's negotiated, but, they at least know that they're willing to share, and they think that they have the capacity to share. So that was good news, because of course, that door could just be shut and be like, we don't have those other options. So I think it does give us an avenue to pursue for one of the options in the long term. So let's jump into the next presentation, if you don't mind, Christian, which will just again sort of summarize the three different options that we've presented this summer, and then the board's conversation. You can go to the next slide as well. Again, we had looked at all of these three options. Just to recap, option 1 on the next slide is pursuing a referendum in 2024 that would fund construction and operational costs over 25 years. It's about a 24% reduction in overall cost for the project. It's a reduced scope. It's 6 classrooms instead of 8. It's a bit of a smaller footprint than we had presented in the past, and that's going to result in an approximate $100 reduction a year on $350,000. The next slide is the graphic that we presented in June that shows the 2 classrooms on the north end of the building taken out, and some of the modifications to some of the other spaces would maintain our FEMA shelter, the library, the 11 offices, not as many offices as we had in the last, in the original, so there was a reduction there, but continuing with the library renovation, the main office move, and the parking lot enhancement. In the second option, we looked at, again, looking at a November referendum for some capital improvements that included the parking lot at Ike and the MacArthur windows and siding work, the operational cost, as well as some renovations to the 6th grade wing at MacArthur. We see there again an even greater reduction in the overall cost, obviously, and we'd be recommending a 20-year repayment in option 2. Option here we see the drawing. This is the far west hallway, the 6th grade hallway in the front of the building. We'd be adding those sinks and restrooms, converting some classroom spaces into office space in this scenario. That would allow us to relocate our current early childhood programming, and then free up space at Eisenhower for full day K. This coincides then also with reductions in programming and fewer class sizes larger class sizes because of fewer sections at MacArthur. And then again, as I just said, option 3 is yes, please go ahead and continue the conversation. See if we can start putting some final kind of more finite dollars to it, start talking more about timelines and terms and those kinds of things. And my goal again would be to bring something to the board in September that at least gives us an idea of the timeline. This would obviously take us to the April referendum window, should that be what we wanted to pursue. So we tried to give a comparison of some of the key components to demonstrate both where we're seeing some changes, modifications from our original ask, our previous referendum option kind of checks all the boxes. It was, that's why we proposed it. It really, we felt, gave us both the current and some future programming needs, as well as resolving the other issues, preserving our current programming, making an investment in our own facilities, gives us future flexibility, and obviously would meet the full day kindergarten mandate. We see the other three options all meet the full day kindergarten mandate, but at different impacts, different costs. So the cost benefit analysis looking at the Eisenhower edition pretty much ticks all of our boxes. With 6 classrooms, it puts us pretty much at capacity, with that one classroom to kind of flex between, maybe we can use that as an extra section of kindergarten if enrollment goes up, or maybe that gives us the ability to expand what we're doing in early childhood. We'd have a space there if we wanted to pursue a parent pay option, or if we wanted to expand our services to at-risk students. That gives us a little bit of flexibility for the future, and would give us the move a space back at Sullivan that's currently used for the full day early childhood section. That
But just the change in vision from the previous option to the Eisenhower edition is that there will no longer be an expansion of each seat, right? I mean, that's
at the end of the day, it makes it much more difficult for us to do anything, especially 5-7 years down the line. Our hands are in, we're fixed space. If you think that potentially 5 years from now, the state's gonna say now you're also required to provide full day K, you're required to provide early childhood to all students, we'd be back with a site crunch, space crunch.
The third option we discussed today, has that been part of the initial discussions as well as, hey, we do a 10-year, 15-year lease? Would it include potential for expansion into that if that became an issue?
So our open-ended request was, if you have any space, we'd like to consider it with you. Obviously it would be less ideal even to have 2 classes here and 2 classes here and 2 classes here. But we were open to say, just, are there any spaces? Again, if we're looking at building something new, we could build it with the idea of expansion in mind if the costs are in line or are worth it for us. Or we may end up with what we need to have right now to make that happen is 5 classrooms. So 5 classrooms would be a swap of our current services that would free up that space at Ike and give us that one flex room to either move art off the cart, which it's currently on, or music out of the library, which it's currently in. So it, again, doesn't solve all of our problems. It doesn't, but it is a good compromise from a, understanding where our community thus far has said, hey, this is too much. This cost is too much. We've got to respect that, but the flip side of that is we also need to keep the best interest of this organization in mind for the future. So that's why, when you see these kind of comparisons, yes, no, somewhat, that's kind of vague, but it all depends. We don't know what future enrollment numbers will look like. So it's not a guarantee one way or another, but in our best estimate, we think that Eisenhower edition is the one to move on. So our recommendation, when we look at that, to sort of think about it in 2 parts. The solution at Eisenhower is the solution that we feel is best for the long-term interest of the district, in our opinion. And then secondarily, the November timeframe would be our recommendation. We kind of flush these out in the next 2 slides just for, so again, the Eisenhower solution we've talked about for a long time. This gives us the needed space, gives us opportunity to partner or to have community rental groups in that FEMA shelter. Again, most importantly, I think it's responsive to the community's message to us that we didn't get blown out of the water. It wasn't a 90% no, it was 60-40 both times. So we know that there's some groundswell of support. There's some folks that are gonna be no, and then there's people in the middle going, time economically, it's any increase in taxes is tough, we get it. So we think that this shows that understanding and responsiveness by saying we looked at it, we cut some components out, it reduces the ask by about that 23% or so, and about $100. In terms of why November, again, not having a crystal ball, nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen, but for us, in our conversations with other strategists and consultants, the higher rate of voter participation that is expected in a presidential election is a positive thing in our case. There are, at this time, we know there are no competing referenda that are being discussed for this November election for our local taxing bodies. We also know that there are likely multiple neighboring districts pursuing the full-day kindergarten referendum in November. So that puts our ask in alignment with what others are doing, that it isn't just us going off on our own thinking we just want to add this for no reason. There are a number of other districts that are pursuing full-day kindergarten, and this puts us in that messaging around this is not a need that's going away. And then on the financial side, as we've continued to learn, it only gets more and more expensive. So opportunities for us to get an answer earlier, get organized earlier, get our bids out on the street earlier, secure pricing earlier are all going to end up being financial benefits as opposed to waiting until later opportunities. And lastly, I think one of the things that we've talked about is knowing that what this comes down to always is the campaign and how we are able to share our message and get that message out to the community at large, how we organize ourselves for what we can do as a school district in terms of informational campaigns, and also knowing that there's a community advocacy organization that is poised and ready to take up the that side of the campaign is at least helpful to know that it's there and that there's that support whenever we choose to move forward. So that was me talking way too much. I'm going to completely stop and allow y'all to ask questions or have your discussions.
Anyone have questions for the admin staff? Anyone have any initial thoughts then?
First I want to thank people that were in the audience this evening. I'm sorry I was late, so I did not get to hear any speeches that were given. I believe my understanding is that some, if not all of you, were here to rally towards having a referendum try again on the November ballot. Personally, and just in talking with members of the community, I am not feeling an overwhelming change of opinion or change in desire to vote yes for a referendum without us doing something different, looking at some sort of alternative. I very much appreciate the partnership research that was done. I think, to me, that is, I don't know that I think that is awful. I had no issue when we had ECDEC off campus. I thought that worked well. I know it only lasted for a couple of years. I think we have had some wonderful interagency agreements over the years, whether it be, the Wild Things of 214, I hope I called them the right name, our agreement with the Park District over in Arlington Heights with the gym, and I feel like we need to take a break this December from having a referendum. I would rather see us working with the two entities that are possibly willing to do a partnership with us, see what that really comes out to be, and I think have a very clear understanding of costing of such agreements, and then decide what to do moving forward. That's just my thoughts. It's my thoughts, but it is also based on talking to members of the community. I just don't think having 3 referendums in a row when 2 didn't pass, and I understand they were not blown out of the water kinds of things. But I also feel, even for people that are volunteering to try to support a referendum that's just a couple months away, maybe this would give them more time if we decided that we wanted to do something in April instead, to just mobilize better, give them more time, maybe not such a rushed effort, and really understand, be able to get the word out if there is going to be some sort of partnership so people understand it better. The other thing that I do hear from people, different from this, is just, if it is put on there again and it fails, what are the consequences? What are we going to do to be able to keep going on, or what kind of cuts are we going to be able to make? And we really haven't delved into those kind of things, and maybe voters need to understand if this doesn't pass, here's the real consequences, sort of the tangible things we would have to do, so that people can, when they go to vote, they understand, okay, either I'm going to vote to have this increase, this is what it's going to get me, and if I don't vote for it, these are the things that may be the repercussions, I think a more solidified list of what the repercussions are of not voting for such a thing. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Other thoughts? Any other views?
I don't disagree on the negative side. Actually, I've been talking to a couple people about, like, I know we can't go to the complete other end, but like if this doesn't pass, at some point, like there has to be a big decision that's made. Like either we overfill classrooms, or we like have to make other decisions about what happens with the school district that will impact voters that way as well, or taxpayers that way. They'll go to another district and probably have a tax increase or whatever. I don't know what those things are. That's more been what's on my mind. I don't know. As a parent of a student, I know that's one thing that's on my mind, is that I know that if we do those things, it impacts the quality of what we're doing. The question that I've had is, if we don't think this passes now, I don't think it passes in April. I don't think that like waiting any time is going to make a difference. Is if it's going to pass, it's going to pass. If it's not, it's not. That's just my opinion. So I really appreciate the work on the P3 thing. I know that was something that I asked for. I was hopeful there was some other options. Obviously there's not. But I don't know. I'm definitely in favor of supporting our kids, but it's a tough no path. Yeah. Like that's where I get stuck, is that I'm all in on wanting to do it. I think we've made some great cuts, and I think the option the way it's presented, I will give the team credit along with the architects, is that if there are things future down the road, I do think we have options the way the space is presented, that we know where things will go. Like, it has opportunities to grow versus a P3, at least the ones that we know of, the information that we know is kind of a can kick, right? It doesn't solve and it doesn't have options. I don't really feel good about the MacArthur option. I don't think it's a good fit. For lots of reasons. So my thought right now is P3 a little bit, but I think at some point the thing has to happen, or we have to have a very tough discussion about what no means.
I think if I'm not mistaken, every single one of the options we have before us, we're going to referendum.
Yeah.
We can't support any of those options without.
I think, I agree, like, you bring up such good points, right? Like, it's fast, we do need to talk about these, like, no's. Like, if we are what does that mean for our community? And really, like, clearly saying that means bigger classes, or whatever that means, right? Like, really openly talking about what does this mean? And as a parent with kids, like, that's scary to me to think about that, right? Like, for the impacts on our kids and our system, that's amazing. The Eisenhower or the MacArthur one does not sit well with me. Like, I don't love that idea. The no's and the somewhats, and I don't love that. The partnership intrigues me because I do think, like, right to your point, we've had some great partnerships that have shown us, right, the Wildstang thing alone is amazing, that partnership. I do think, though, that, like, what's coming down the pipeline from legislators and in the education world and what we know, the potentials, it feels a little pigeonholy, which we still have to go referendum, and we still don't get everything we need. And in 5 years could be back at, like, well, now what, right? Like, and then stuck in a 10, 15, 20-year lease. That kind of worries me.
Paying rent.
That we're paying rent and then still need to now do something more on top of that. To your point, though, I agree. Like, we don't know what does that mean, right? Like, what does that mean? I do think, though, that, like, we heard the community. $456 per house is too big. That's too much of an ask. And so we've dug deep since that no in April and really listened and started cutting, and you guys have explored some options that still don't give us everything we want, but start to, okay, we heard you all and we need to cut and we need to go lower. I don't know if that really answers the question,
No,
but I think that, like, while I agree too, is people are tired. This is our third time, like, again and again, but to your point, we have to pass a referendum to do anything. We cannot do this without some kind of community backing, and I think we hear that sitting here, but I think also the organizations hearing that, like, the community is starting to hear that too. Like, there has to be a change, and people have to understand the impacts of this.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe a sentiment in the community that it's an option to not do a referendum.
Right.
I don't think there's an understanding that this district simply can't go on without getting some funding.
But we have to lay that out.
I agree.
Right.
I just don't think that there's that understanding.
Well, that's right, because we haven't given a list of here's what's gonna happen, right?
But to that point, I was gonna just make my thoughts on this one. What's gonna happen if you don't, my opinion, for the folks who you're gonna tell that to, they're probably the ones who either support it already, maybe on the fence, but parents already support this. The ones who aren't parents don't care. They're not going to really care about you saying, well, class sizes are going to increase, we're not going to be able to have all the programs. They're not going to care. If they don't care now, they're not going to care if you say that. And I think creating FUD too early can have a negative, not a positive. The thing I just said earlier, though, you're going to have to pay. You're either paying $350 now, and we're buying something that we own, or you're paying $250 and we're renting for 20 years. That is, as anyone, I would be like, okay, that's a decision as a homeowner, even if I don't have kids, that I can understand. I get that now. Why would I put money in just to pay rent for 20 years when I could, create a capital investment?
But
That still might
you're
not.
paying for the kindergarten, wherever it is.
My point is, you're still paying.
Right.
You have to pay. That's just my thought on it. I just don't think that the public in general, the ones who don't have families, I don't think that's gonna make a difference.
What do you mean though, Carol? You're paying for the kinder? I guess.
The point is to have a kindergarten. We have to have a kindergarten.
Yes.
It could be here, it could be, next, the next neighbor over or wherever. And that's what we're paying for. I get that, the best scenario would be to own whatever it is that we're paying for. But the point is to have a kindergarten.
I'm missing your point. I apologize. I agree with you 100%. I'm missing how that.
We have to have a
Are you saying
kindergarten.
something
They're
in
not
contrast
saying,
to what I'm saying?
No, I'm just saying that we have to have a kindergarten.
Yes.
Today.
I agree with
by
you.
2027, but we don't know what we have to have in 2028 or 2029. Maybe we have to have EC in 2029.
Yeah, we don't know.
Right? Like we don't know. I don't know.
And that was my
Yeah.
point. That was my point of they have to pay regardless.
Right.
And that's, I think, to your point. I just don't think that our neighborhoods realize that. I think they see this binary. I either do this and I pay for it, or I don't have to do it. I don't think they realize we have to do this regardless.
I don't know.
We have to do something. We
Well,
can't
have to
do
something,
nothing.
But that's right. If people, I actually do see it as people saying, yeah, I'll give you the money, or I'm not going to give you the money.
Exactly.
You figure it out. So I don't feel that way. And I guess to Carol's point, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think maybe what Carol is saying is that so we can't afford to do the expansions, improvements here. If it is cheaper for us to partner up with someone else, but to still get the sort of outcome we want, even though we don't own it or it's not on our campus, maybe more, there might be a better appetite for that. I'm not sure.
And
That's what you were
and if that,
trying to
thank
say.
you. That
Yeah.
but at least then they can make a financial decision, right? They may make a different decision. If it's $250 for us to go somewhere else and pay for it and it's rent, or $350, like I'd actually start questioning that myself. As a homeowner, do I want to have no control over my township's destiny in that regard? Do I want to just pay rent for the next 20 years and pay $250 anyway, or do I want to pitch in another $100? It would be something I'd actually think about.
Kev, I think though the problem is too though that like my brain is going to.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that it's $250 either. We're only
No,
having
we're
right,
based
but
on this.
no, I know,
Right.
but that's what I'm saying. It
But
could be
it could be more
$325,
It
and
could
it
be-
could only
We
be a
don't.
$25.
We don't.
And I don't
Right, like-
quite, right, and I don't mean to be rude, but these are one of our partner districts
Mhm.
that I feel like you're saying, it's like subpar to our district, and you can't say that, and it's not like we're not gonna have
No,
some
I
sort
was
of
never
say
saying
so. Well, we're not like just shipping our kids off somewhere, good luck, goodbye, but we are going to have an agreement that of course we're gonna have some sort of input to it, or it wouldn't make sense for us to enter into that agreement.
Oh, I apologize if that's the impression I got. I never meant to give the impression that it was be subpar simply because it's somewhere else. But you have more control over your destiny if you're investing in the resource.
But we
And-
would be investing in it. It is our money being funneled. It just like, to me, I see it almost as an
you may not
NSSEO
have-
kind of thing.
You're going to be giving up some control, regardless.
I understand.
That's what I meant.
But we would still have some sort of voice in what's going on. We would have an agreement.
Some voice, yes,
But that's right.
of course.
It's not 100%, but they're not gonna be 100% either, right? It is a partnership.
Depending on the agreement we.
Well, that's right, that we would vote to approve,
Yes.
right?
Yes, but you're still renting.
Or investing, it depends if are we going to
So-
give capital dollars, or are we going to actually pay and have some sort of an investment and part ownership of whatever's, but we don't know.
Really.
If that were the option, then obviously that means something totally different.
And we don't know, cause we're at the very beginning stages of that, and so it's just hard for me to say, sure, put a referendum out in November, but, cause I don't even understand, we don't have the details, we haven't heard back from these other boards, what are their thoughts on these things, what are even the highlights or the bullets of things that they want to discuss as far as going into a partnership with us, so it's hard for me to say, to go down a different path without fully vetting this path first, to me, that's my thinking.
Are you gonna say something?
I got a few comments. To me, I go back to Carol's point, like, it's solving for the full day kindergarten. If I'm looking at it just as a real estate owner, what I don't wanna have happen is, the Zillow, Redfin show up as like District 23 doesn't have this programming, and so they're a 2 or a 3 out of 10. It doesn't matter about the renting or owning to me at this point. It matters, like, are we offering it, and are we competing where we're at now or holding pat? I think that's the bigger concern I have if we're not meeting state mandates and somehow that goes in the database and somehow that impacts our home values.
Agreed.
Like, that's like the first thing, and I just don't think we campaigned with that, with all the work that the committees and the groups did. We didn't really get into that at all. We didn't talk about that to our constituents. They don't realize how that's going to impact them, whether they have kids in the district or not. And to me, that would be a better strategy to go after the community with, of like, this is an investment into real estate. And some people aren't going to care. Some people aren't educated to understand. I totally get all that. But I think at the end of the day, no one wants their home property to go down. No one wants to be able to take a home equity loan at a higher rate because their house is worth less. Like, all this stuff matters. So I think we've got to come at it different. So to me, I'm still of the mindset, like, I think it's hard to cram it all in by November. Like, I think it's super challenging. I think it's a tall ask for the community to come together. Like, we need a real plan. And no disrespect to our partners to the prior, but I'm not sure all the advice and the help we got really helped us. It didn't really tackle it, not in a true way. So to me, I think we got to put our heads together, focus on April. I don't like the MacArthur option. It's the worst time in a student's career to start taking stuff away. Like, with all the things we talk about with mental health and all the trainings we've done and all the presentations, like, that's the worst thing to do. So the MacArthur option's like totally off the table in my mind. But I think we need more time to prepare. We need to get into the people that are either not voting or voting no, and have a more adult, realistic conversation of what it means to them financially. Because I just don't think they get it. My final piece is this, like, I spent a lot of time at Capitol Hill. I do not think November's the right time. There's a lot of anger no matter what side you sit on, and there's people coming out to vote. They're not voting to be like, yeah, let's sign me up for more taxes. Like, doesn't matter what side you're on. They're not happy. Like, this is not going to be a fun election. So I'm not even sure why we put our energy into it now. I know things go up and costs go up. That's a risk we have to take. I think we got to tackle it a little more aggressively and do it a little differently on our campaign trail.
I don't personally have enough experience with political kind of
I think
gameplay to be able to determine whether it's November or April.
Get voter fatigue too, I think, on this ballot. Any November ballot on a presidential campaign, you're gonna get voter fatigue. So even if you have people that are bought in, you may not get to that far in the ballot in some cases. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyone else have anything they wanna add before we maybe kinda even just do a straw poll?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that there is, I think there probably is an advantage. Like I guess if you just think about the two elections, right, November and April, I think that November probably you might have think about it like tests, right? The November test might be a little bit easier, but and the April test might be a little harder, but we have way less time to prepare, right, for this November test. And this is, I feel like, I'm like a broken record here, but I just conceptually generally agree with Bryn that we need to change the approach, right, and the way that we're reaching out to our local community.
Yeah,
that we were clearly not getting to, there were groups in the community that we were not reaching, and that we need to figure out a different approach to get to them. And I think that takes time, right? And that's looking at, looking at the precincts, understanding, we need to be reaching out to homeowners associations in different precincts, to the non-English speaking communities. And I think the other advantage of that is I don't know where the community partnership would be, but that would give us time to investigate that more fully as well. So I think that I would lean towards. I believe generally that we're going to need to try at least one more time for a referendum. But I think that doing it next year, after we, where we really have time to plan and strategize and give our community group time.
I have a question about that, or I guess maybe a statement / question, is that, and I'm not a politician by any means, right with you, Kevin, I don't understand a lot of it, is that, like, I feel that this week I just started getting, besides the presidential election, which is like everywhere, I'm just starting to get like flyers for people running for things this week. And what I heard the two speakers say during the public comment was like they've been meeting, they've been talking about whether it's November or April, like they have ideas and like whether it's either place, they already kind of have a plan. That they're not starting from ground zero based on our vote tonight of like having to start everything. They've already started talking and strategizing no matter when we decide to go referendum, if we decide to go referendum. They're not like gonna tonight, if we vote yes, start getting a committee together. They've already started talking about that. So to me, the public campaigns, like who's running for Senate, I haven't seen anybody doing anything for judges. Like that hasn't even started yet. So it doesn't feel like if they've truly started, right? Like I'm not part of that, I don't know. If they've started and are doing all of these things, maybe they are ready to hit the ground for a November election if at the same time frame that a judge is hitting the ground with their stuff, because I haven't received one thing for a judge running for our office to know who's on the ballot or not.
It's a different animal though, because
I'm just just an opinion that
the judges you could look at the Chicago Bar Association ratings and stuff and make your decision that way. There's, to your point, I think there's a lot that we need to convey, or needs to be conveyed to the community. In the last, most of the summer, I've talked to lots of people in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood in the last 5 or 6 years is quite mixed now. There are very young families who are very excited about this, but there's lots of retired people who say, my taxes just went up like $500 or $800, and now you want to add this. And they also say, where were you 20 years ago when my kid was in school, So it's not that they're against it, that they don't want it. They do want it. They see the value of it. But it's a huge ask for some of these people. So, you know, I think, you know, some of them, they just can't do it. And some of them, you know, if we, you know, we could make sure that they know what the deal is here and that it is required now. Not all of them know that. And you know, the other thing I tried to find out is there some threshold that they, you know, would be acceptable to them, and you know, nobody could tell me that.
Yeah, that's a tough one for
So,
some days.
I think to your point, I think there needs to be a very concerted effort in, like, you know, maybe going door to door and telling people, you know, that this is where we are, that it's required now, this is what we do, this is what we think we should do going forward, and, you know, just, I think with more information, some of those folks would be a yes, but,
Yeah, I think
I don't know, I think it's gonna be a hard sell.
at least everyone I've talked to, I think we all agree that the key that we need to target are the people on the fence. The folks who are adamant no's, we're probably
Sure.
not gonna
Yeah.
change. But the ones who were on the fence, those are the ones that we need to push over to our side.
And the thing that I always keep going back to, right, is that last community engagement meeting in March where there was a group of senior citizens there, and you were there, Spencer. She said, the only reason I am here because I felt like that you're trying to sneak this past me. And I did not know anything about this until somebody told me about it today.
Right.
And I'm coming here because I'm angry and I feel like that you're trying to sneak this past me.
Mm-hmm.
We have way less time now than we did for the March one, and so this is to me like, and again, we have to be, and again, and I don't, just to your point, Becky, I think you're right. Some campaigns are going to start now. I know 57 is voting tonight, but this has been 6 months, right, of them building up to this. Where we're kind of I know that this team is doing work, and we appreciate everything they're doing, but from the community perspective, I think voting tonight that we're going in November is going to be a shock to the community, because I don't think that they were really are anticipating that we're doing this. But you know, I think that we have to permanently change the way we do community outreach, right? And that we have to be engaged more with communities that don't have children in the district, because again, you know, to your point earlier, you know, we may have to come back again, right, in 10 years if we get another push, and we have to have more of an infrastructure with the communities that don't have children in our district. And I think that's more than a 3-month project, because I don't want to like show up at I don't want to show up at my dad's condo association meeting at Old Orchard and the first conversation to be, I need money, right? I want, you know, the police department, the fire department go to every meeting there, or maybe not every, but they're there regularly, checking in, giving presentations, and that seems like it's more of the relationship that we have to have with some of these older communities, to show up a couple times a year and say, hey, here's the stuff that we're doing, right, with way less resources than the surrounding districts have, and you know, and we want to let you know that we have this requirement coming, and that we are going to be coming back asking for money soon, but here's all the work we're doing to figure out the best solution for all the families in this community. And will that work? I have no idea, but the thing that I don't want to like rush into this because we think it's a favorable election and not do the absolute best amount of work that we can and put our absolute best foot forward.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
But just all of your points about the advantages are true. Like if that 57 is way higher than us, that we would actually, you know, that 57 ask is going to be more like 700 a house, you know, and so like I don't dispute there are potential significant advantages to doing this in November, but just to me, I just feel like that I want us to feel really confident that we've done everything we can to get ready for it.
Okay. I think we've all had an opportunity to give our thoughts. Just a quick show of hands. Is there anyone who would advocate at this point to go forward in November?
I would.
Does everyone else advocate for holding off till April and trying to do more, that's what I'm hearing, do more to reach the community? Yeah?
I'm undecided. I wanna still see more on partnerships and, I mean, I think if,
But for sure not November.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's fair.
I think looking more into the partnerships would be valuable too.
I think absolutely, my opinion is absolutely ask the administrative staff to continue those discussions. Does everyone agree with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think what we're hearing is we're gonna hold off. And
I would give it one caveat though, because I don't, with where we're at right now, I looked it up, we're 50 days away from early voting, so I think we can't look at the date of whatever the April election is. We need to work back to when early voting is, and then we need to pick a deadline.
Fair.
That's probably like November or December, where we say, this is what we're doing, that we're not in this path going forward, because I agree, I'm happy to learn more, but like we have to get a deadline that says like,
No.
we're either going this path or this path, cause
for April even.
for April,
Yes,
yeah, like, so
yes.
even if we're going to April, which I don't oppose,
Yep.
I just don't want us to get, because I feel like that's where we were at the last time too, was that we didn't set ourselves up, we kept working, that like, we know the election's probably whatever in April, and we know early voting's gonna start 30 days before that, and we know we're gonna need at least a couple months before that, so we're talking like in December at our meeting, or even maybe November after the election, we can maybe learn something from what other school districts are doing, that we say at that meeting, we're gonna decide what we're gonna do. Like, we have to, like, that's just my opinion, because otherwise.
I think, to your point too, is we need to be aware of what's coming in April. Board elections are in April, right? Like, there's other referendum that could be on from other like competing referendum against us in April. So I think that's something to talk about too.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Sounds like there's a city one coming, right? There's that streets potentially.
Oh, yeah.
We've had both, right? In 23 we were by ourselves, and last year we were at the fire department. And last year the fire department passed and we didn't. I don't know what we could take from what was happened historically, right? I would probably prefer to be by ourselves, right? And all
That's what I'm
things
saying,
being
like,
equal,
and your board election is at the same time.
Yep. Same viewpoint? Yes.
Sorry.
I think the direction is not move forward in November and continue to engage in a discussion to see where we can go with those third parties.
And it'll be an interesting board election too, to see if there's members of the community that feel really strongly whatever way, and, you know, we'll see what happens.
Okay. Then items C and D can be skipped. We won't need either of those action items. And we'll move to item E, the approval for display of the FY25 budget posting, and a presentation that Mrs. McPartland has put together for us.
So we spent, as Bryn said, we spent a pretty significant amount of time kind of going through line by line, the proposed fiscal 25, second one.
Yep.
Thanks. Budget, and just talking about, spending a little bit of time talking about the actuals, the prior year budget, actuals year to date, and then moving forward. So I wanted to just kind of go over some of the items that go into preparation of the budget. The budget for us is really it's an ongoing process that extends throughout the year. So tonight I want to talk about kind of where we envision ourselves wrapping up the year in fiscal 24, and then spend some time talking about that 2025 budgeting process itself. Go ahead, Christian, thanks. And then provide just some insights and overview, some prior year's history with regard to fund balances, and also spend some time talking about our ISB financial recognition status. Go ahead, next one. This slide was shared with finance as of August 9th. This is kind of where we envision lining up across our operational funds. In the positive, about $300,000, which would be terrific. Every finance committee, we have gone over outstanding payables from the county. Property tax balances due to the district right now are just under $600,000, and that goes back to tax year 2020. We have already started to receive our August payables in, obviously, which is terrific. Just kind of looking through some of these things, we've come in under budget with regard to the ed fund, both in services, supplies, and equipment. As we go into the next year, we've talked a little bit about some of our levy strategy, and we're trying to really push money towards the ed fund. We know that this year we're looking at a 4.5% increase in salaries. We're right around a 7 to 9% increase in our benefits, and so to continue to be able to balance the budget, especially in the ed fund, does get a little bit more difficult as those increases go up. We're forced to really take a good look at where the other remaining expenditures are at. So we talked through the just the whole budgeting process. There are 3 key components for us to keep in mind: stewardship, planning, and overall budgeting strategy. And we've talked through some of these things in finance as well. So for us, go ahead, Christian, if you don't mind. We talk about you can go back down. Yep. It's
I don't see the 3M. So.
I know. Yeah, that was the original rendering. That's the final. That's the final.
Or what?
Yeah. Yeah, you're kind of right between two.
Yeah. That's it.
No, yeah, you can go up to the next one. There you go. So we talked about really stewardship. It's an ongoing prioritization for us. In most of our capital expenditures, most of our ongoing projects, it really is a phased approach. We do what we can every year, and we really do try and make the most of the dollars that we have. One of the things we found out last week are additional funds for EBF. You know, we're hearing there's significant funds. I know there was just an article in the Herald the other day about how much more some other districts are getting. U46 was several $1 million for us. It's $34,000. That's what our new portion of EBF is for this year. We're happy about it, but
there have been years where
it's a little bit more.
Where it's been negative.
If anybody's listening.
So we'll take it, but yeah.
Yeah, for us, we talk about this too. Budget, it's a plan. It's a kind of a roadmap for us to spend throughout the year. This past year, thank you to our administrative team, we spent a lot of time and took a more zero-based approach to all of our expenditures. They provided rationale for any increase. We take a very conservative approach to our revenues. We are projecting our property tax collections at 98% going into next year. Typically, we have in the fiscal, we typically are right around 100%. However, we've seen some delays that caused us to kind of think twice, and then we're gonna set that back a couple of percentage points. So we also allow for a very balanced contingency planning. Originally, when I started here, there were a number of different line items that had contingencies built in. We've kind of tightened those up. We allow for one. It's $100,000 line item in the ed fund for any unanticipated significant expenses that come up, and those obviously go to finance for approval before they would come to the board. Typically, that would be something like a unanticipated, you know, a special ed placement. We also put in one staffing contingency, which we are using this year. Where second grade?
Second grade.
Yeah. And then just the ongoing monitoring of revenues and expenditures. We work with Forecast 5, and then we also provide those updates on a monthly basis to finance. This is a little bit of busyness here. We worked with our Forecast 5 partners to bring up the past 10 years of our historical financial profile for us. One of the goals through the fund balance policy is to make sure that we stay within that recognition category. There are a couple of different things, as you can see on the left, that go into that status with ISB. Obviously, they take into consideration on an annual basis our long and short-term debt, our days of cash on hand, the expense to revenue ratio, and then our fund balance to revenue ratio, which is that bottom line on the bottom that you can see stays pretty consistent.
I did not realize that we were in review in 2019.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah,
but
and,
that
and
was,
Brian, and in 2015 and in 2016.
yeah, I see the older ones. Yeah,
Right.
I didn't realize that.
So
Yeah.
it is, you know, I mean that 33% is really a target for us, but we acknowledge that there have been some years that come in that are a little bit better than others. Some unanticipated expenditures come up, and we have to kind of flex, use the dollars that we have, and keep on going. So this is, like I said, 10 years of history. Some swings there. You know.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Why is what makes the cash green and only one of the years, but every other year it's yellow? Like, is that something?
You mean, you're talking, so that's the expenses to revenue ratio?
The cash
Or the 2014 cash, I think.
is
what
green.
Days cash on hand.
Days
Right.
cash on hand,
Right.
yeah.
But I guess like,
I think that there's just more relative, I think, so then we got a top score for.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then the
That's the long-term debt.
A
Mhm.
couple of years we get a better score.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll notice the debt, that was, we've had, you know, Don's talked about it a couple times where we've taken a more thoughtful approach with regard to utilizing our available DSEB. So we've had a couple of smaller bond issuances. We're starting to see some of those larger bond issuances roll off, going back to, we just rolled off a 2014 issuance. Those are kind of starting to come off. Yeah, did you have a question there?
no, I just wanted to say too, I guess I feel like had we been on an accrual basis of accounting all these years, I think 2019 would have pulled up and probably 2018 and 2020 would have come down.
Leavened out a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't know that we would have just plummeted into review
Right.
and shopping.
Right.
But
Oh,
now that
gotcha.
we've gone to accrual basis, hopefully
It'll-
we're going to be more.
It'll even it out.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
flatten out a little bit.
Right.
And, but no doubt back in those early days, there it was not so pretty.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much of a diving. We were like kind of right on the border
Yeah.
between review and recognition.
Go ahead, next slide. This is, again, we've revised our fund balance policy. We are adhering to that 33%. The budget that I'm presenting tonight has us right at 32.8%, so we're right about at that threshold. We're in the process now. We had our first audit call today. We're in the process of finalizing exactly where we'll shake out. This takes us all the way to 2023. And this is a summary of strictly our operating funds, again, as we decided on the policy. The one thing that we do anticipate seeing in 2024 is we'll have the shift from some of the working cash bond proceeds that we had, and those are shown in pink. We've had the two significant expenditures coming out of working cash. So so we all are on the same page. The one was the $2.4 million that we had for this work here that we have that will be coming out of working cash. The other one is the capital work that we've done the design phase work, sorry, not really capital, but the design work that we did on Eisenhower, about 600,000 there. So we will likely see those reductions coming through in fiscal '24. The green line represents our fund balance policy, that is 33%. So you can see in fiscal '23, the operating funds, we were right there. That is what that the black up and down line shows. That is fund balance to expenditure ratio. When we talk about our overall budgeting strategy, something that I'm really proud of the work that we've done with regard to more of a fiscal transparency. I feel like I'm, the budgetary guidelines and assumptions, we bring those to you guys in March. That's really an outline of our priorities as we go into the next fiscal year. The conversations around what our objectives are with regards to what and how we're saving money for, right? For us, it is that prioritization of the capital expenditures that we've done in partnership with Archon as we've kind of identified those longer term facilities needs that we have. Those are kind of always on the forefront because we want to make sure that we're really proactive in staying on top of those. And then continuing to keep our fund balances right around that 33%, that's our target. One of the things that we've also been really thoughtful about doing, like I kind of touched on earlier, that levy strategy, along with pushing more money to the ed fund, we've been thoughtful about allocating money coming in to our working cash fund as a little bit of a savings account. So it's been in our, I believe, in our best interest to kind of continue to build that up. But then also looking at where we can negotiate contracts smarter, and really taking a good look when these contracts come up to make sure that they are services that we actually really need and utilize. And I can honestly say that we've done a really good job doing that for the most part every time a contract comes up. We are looking at them far more thoughtfully, I would say, which feels good as well. So in kind of talking through the fiscal '25 budget, go ahead Kristen if you don't mind, we're presenting a balanced budget. You can see that the white funds, again, in accordance with our fund balance policy, are the operating funds. So we're right now reflecting a surplus of $752,000, $752,799. You recall that this past year we levied high in ed in anticipation of the referendum passing because it didn't. We needed to go back and change our apportionment resolution, which continued to push funds into ed fund. The interesting thing, Don had talked a little bit about continuing conversations with our legislators to make sure that we are kind of up to date on any opportunities that they may see coming down the pike with regard to capital supplements and grant opportunities for us. We will be likely realizing that $416,000 thanks to Representative Canty and Senator Gillespie. We have been fully approved by the state, so those will be payable in fiscal '25. So those funds have been reflected as revenue in the operations and maintenance. The nice thing is those dollars have to be expended out of capital projects. However, we have the ability to put those funds anywhere. Because operations and maintenance was levied lower, we've decided that we're going to put that money there. We're going to leave the ed fund levying a little bit higher. And then the capital projects money, obviously, that will be expended out in fiscal '25. We've paid the initial payment on the windows and siding, so we'll likely have one or two more there. The tort, that's looking like a deficit right now. It really only is because we had to prepay. We ended up kind of paying 2 workers' comps out of the 1 year. It's really just a carryover that we won't see again. Our new workers' comp went to self, and that is going to be at a reduction for us, which is great. This also, though, did reflect an increase in our cyber liability, which is the other large expenditure that comes out of tort for us. This again reflects a 32.8% fund balance ratio at the end of fiscal 25. So that is in alignment with our fund balance policy.
That is really kind of like building up because all the capital improvements
It's
money
gonna
came
have to
out,
come.
so
Brian,
we're actually
we
under
have to
now.
start,
We're building up.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have to get it up. So next steps, again, what was included in the packet tonight, in addition to the preliminary budget, was also the notice of the public hearing, which we would have next month. So that is in the paper. And then we'll go ahead and approve the final budget, submit it to ISB. Again, our final portion of the audit is scheduled to start on the 26th. We'll go on August 26th. That's a 2-week process. And then we'll be generating those final projection models as well. At this point, I'm not anticipating any changes, any significant changes. There is one O&M expenditure that we will likely need to incur, and we'll have to charge that to the O&M surplus, so we'll see a reduction there. It's going to be roughly a $50,000 expenditure. Can I share that news? I guess I can.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's in our long range plan.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
just we've been deferring it for as long as we could, and
Yeah.
the time has come where we can't defer it anymore.
Sadly come for us. So, over the past literally couple days, within the past week, when we went to start up all of our intercom systems, building to building, they went to start up the Ross one, and the Ross one has officially kind of tapped out on us. So, we do have a temporary fix that Sound Incorporated will be coming in to provide us. That will be
Megaphones?
yes.
Not that far off.
Anyway, so they'll be coming in to provide that classroom to classroom, classroom to office communication is really essential for us. So they'll be coming in to install a kind of a short-term fix, which will buy us a little time and evaluate some proposals and then get going with that permanent solution.
How much time does that really like? Is it
The temporary solution will stay in place until we go ahead and issue the purchase order. They have the parts in stock, so they can turn that around pretty quickly for us.
That'll be in place before the kids are here.
Yeah.
Both for a practical, but also for safety. We need to be able to do that.
We need that in place.
The intercom system, as we've talked about again, it's been in our long range plan for forever. It's a big price tag. It's really complicated.
And we have continued to hold it together with
Paper
repurposed
clips,
parts and Band-Aids,
duct tape,
and it's
and-
done
yeah.
great for us.
Yep.
However,
Yeah.
we need
This
to.
time it just said, please no more.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
it's just the Roth side.
It
It's
is
just the Roth
Ross,
classroom.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll be looking at, again, phasing some kind of a plan in phases for
Yeah.
replacing that. Again, we'll have to see what the fix is and what's the projected cost and cost savings if you do a larger project, but that's
But the point is, I'm gonna have to adjust the budget for
Yeah.
that expenditure, cause that was unanticipated, and as long as I have a little bit of flexibility in the O&M fund, I will go ahead and put it there, and then bring, finance and buildings and sites up to speed in September.
What is that temporary fix gonna cost? Ballpark?
Just over, like, not even $2,100.
Oh, wow.
Just $2,000,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But
talking, but a 50,000 to really
Yeah.
get it where it needs to
get it
be.
where we need it to be.
Band-Aids, yes.
Yeah.
Gotta use them sometimes, but
I mean, we could talk about this in finance, but like, do you to replace that now? Do they like the school speaker, like classroom speaker technology, right? I don't know. Like, is there?
Yeah.
Are we using like the same pipes and stuff, or
Yeah,
is
it's
there more like
what we currently
technology
have.
advanced solutions?
Very
That's
much
just-
so. What we have
Yeah.
currently is an analog system
Right,
that we
but
have
we could do
again,
like a Wi-Fi
it will
system
be a
or
digital
something.
system.
Yeah,
night
okay.
and day
Correct.
different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's been the thing is you can band-aid it together, or you have to completely go in a
Right.
brand new different
Right.
direction, because it's a really antiquated system. So, but that's a larger price tag, obviously. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, again, just you all know how much work goes into building the budget. The only other things that legislatively we've been kind of keeping our eye on, there's not a lot of action expected in the fall session. Anything prior to the election is really pretty, is expected to be really pretty quiet and nobody making any really big moves. We have to watch the lame duck session following the election. That tends to be a time where the not as politically friendly decisions have to be made. There will be continued conversations around Tier 2, the Tier 2 retirement package for teachers. Continuing debate between shifting that from the state responsibility back to locals. That would be a significant increase in cost for us that is without an opportunity to levy for. So that's a scary-ish thought to kind of see where that's going.
Do you get feedback about where people think that's actually going? Like if they're...
Yeah, there were a couple of bills that were in place last session that didn't make it through, but they sort of are showing they're putting their cards on the table. You kind of get a sense of where they're going. They have to change both retirement age and they have to change years of service. And those two things in combination to meet the federal safe haven. I can't remember the phrase now, sorry. To hit that threshold, or we're going to start getting school districts, the state of Illinois is going to start getting sued by retirees who aren't, and the projection for the Tier 2 people when they started to hit that retirement mark, 2025.
Here we are.
So,
2025 is true.
yeah, that's the first time. So
first set
they
of
kicked
people.
it. Okay, well we know we're going to put this in place. Look at us. We solved the the pension problem. We kicked it down the road, and they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to get sued in 2025, and everybody knows that the current system does not meet that threshold. So there's going to have to be something put in place, but it's going to be a combination of change in benefits, change in cost sharing, and it's pick your poison. It's either going to be the state paying for it and increasing revenue to pay for that, or decreasing revenue in other places, or they're going to shift to locals and say you have to pick up the difference. Go.
Yeah.
With what?
Exactly.
Right, with what? With cuts.
Right.
So
We'll make it.
we're watching that very closely. I think that's primarily the biggest kind of budgetary impact in legislation that we've got to keep an eye on. Sorry,
Like, when you talk to like Mary Beth and Tracy and whoever, and like they understand our position on this and how really difficult this would be for this to get thrown back to districts, right? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Remind them every time
Okay, yeah.
the impact of paying for a plan that we didn't negotiate and that
Yeah.
we wouldn't have,
Right.
and we have no avenue to levy for.
Right.
Which is
Sorry,
exactly why
that's
it would be pushed on.
But the budget as it is now, super excited about it being balanced, being at our 32.8%. We'll start the audit or finish this audit process now. So we've got a couple of motions for that we need.
Just one.
Does anyone wish to motion to approve the posting of the fiscal year 25 tentative budget, posting in the newspaper, and scheduled public hearing for September 19th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Did the work for you.
Thank you.
You got it.
That was Brian and Brent.
Yes.
Mrs. Botwinski?
Yes.
Mr. Gradanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes. Motion carries 7.
The next agenda item was mentioned earlier in both buildings, or I think in finance. We presenting the contract renewal with Empist for our managed network service in the amount of $105,000 a year.
Here's a motion. Anyone?
A motion to approve the updated contract with Empist for $105,000 a year.
Alright, motion by Brian.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yep.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes, motion carries 7-0.
Next agenda item is also an action item. It's our Honeywell revision and contract renewal.
Yeah, so this again was discussed in buildings and sites, and the contract has been attached for review. There was, as Bryn mentioned, a deduct in the amount of about $15,000, and that was strictly tied to the removal of the abated server and the old cameras over here servicing the district. Is actually located right there. So that is a deduct against last year's contract, and then realizing the same savings as we go into the upcoming contract renewal. Originally, they were looking for a 7% increase. We were able to negotiate that down to a 4% increase year over year. So based on that and their much improved, really, service to the district, we are recommending a 3-year agreement with Honeywell.
And if anyone else is interested, this is one of the things we talked about in finance, right? That we see the huge improvement in service, but we do have out clauses if we see, just my concern is, we're signing a long-term agreement here, we don't want to see it slip again.
That's correct.
And we do have mechanisms to correct it, or, if we do see a slippage in service. So thank you for doing all that.
Thank you.
And Raf's locked in. Like you shared that he understands it.
Very much.
And his team does, and so we've got the right people engaged here on the staff, so it's awesome.
A motion to approve the updated Honeywell contract.
Motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Dr. Long. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
See,
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes, motion carries 7-0.
Item H is the rental agreement renewals, also an action item.
So three-year rental agreements have been prepared and preliminarily approved by the renting organizations. So we had not reviewed the rates since 2021 was the last time that rental rates were renewed. So we did do a comparison with neighboring districts, including District 214, and had increased those rental rates, and then moved to a more consistent model based on the tier of the organization. So those have just been put into place and then locked in for a 3-year term for each of those renters. So we're excited about that.
Super.
I move to approve each of the 3-year rental agreements with Jan 3 Sobieski School, Wanda Rutkiewicz Academy, and the day group is presented.
Super. Motion by Marilyn.
Second.
Second by Brian. Roll call.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Dr. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
And yes, motion carries 7-0.
The remaining agenda items are informational. We'll run through those and entertain any questions you may have. The first is just a documentation of an early release or late start schedule that serves just as an established option, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If the power goes out in the middle of the day, we have something that actually came through the calendar committee last year, and I just never brought it formally to the board. No action on it, it's just there as a starting point so that we've connected with our transportation company, and in the event of an emergency, we want to be able to build off of something rather than start with, well, wait, now what time do we have to release folks? Or if we identify a need to delay, we want to have something to work off of. So that's where that came from. Again, it would be only used in specific emergency kinds of situations. Any questions on that or thoughts?
I like that it's clear so parents can kind of know if we're gonna call it an early release, it's about.
Yeah, I don't anticipate putting it out anywhere, cause I don't want folks to think,
Then it's gonna happen.
but I have it, but now if I have to drop it in an email, I have a table, I can cut, paste,
Yeah.
drop it in, and not be worried about Chris
Calculating.
typing it out and counting up minutes to meet, yeah.
Taking a photo of it.
Yeah.
Taking a
A
decent
blurry
amount
photo,
of- yeah.
blurry, off-centered photo of it. The next item we share annually, Dr. Curtis has presented the professional development plan. This is something that we actually start in the spring of every year, looking ahead to what we have. Craig, you want to make any comments on what we've got going this year?
It was a while ago I wrote it. We're continuing with instructional rounds, which is something that went really well over the past few years, but last year the big change was turning it over from the leadership team more so to the individual buildings, with great feedback from teachers. They enjoyed mostly the collaboration with their colleagues and the reflection process. So that was a nice touch. This year, a couple big things we have going on are a review of our math curriculum, as well as our library and media center curriculum. So those are probably the biggest committees we have going, as well as our continuation of our MTSS process for Tier 2 and Tier 3. We did some revampings over the summer for our mandated trainings, lots of changes there with mandates, so revamped that plan.
Overall, the look of it, Craig completely revamped and made it more interactive, more user-friendly, more accessible. I think the model that we had been using was one that I actually developed back in 2012 and needed to be refreshed. It was old like me, so it got a nice new look with the hyperlinks and the graphics. Our general theme, again, for the school year, we're continuing with that sense of communities of belonging, mindful of inclusive practices, equitable instructional practices, looking at trauma-informed decision-making and practices, restorative justice, and we, similar to NSSEO, but not exactly the same, our internal theme this year is going to be carrying the torch for District 23. So our new hires, Chris has done a great job with our social media. As new hires have come on board, we've used that sort of where's your hometown and what's your event kind of language to highlight the new folks that are coming on board. And we're really going to use that same kind of imagery and the thought of, like, what does it mean to be a part of this team? Like that sense of when you put on the jersey, you're representing something more than yourself. And for us as employees of an organization, it means more than just a job. It's like when we wear our D23 swag, it means something different to us. We're representing something larger than ourselves. So we're going to use that same kind of theme, use the Olympic theme, and use that as a way to kind of flush out what it means for us in terms of attunement to be a part of this organization and serve our students and community. So.
And if you're keeping track, that was Chris's first compliment of the night.
Yeah.
But if you know Don, each time he insults you, it's really a compliment.
It's not an insult.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Does he take those pictures that we see, or?
Yes, sometimes.
Oh, I think those pictures are nice.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Oh,
Chris,
no,
I think
those aren't the ones
Chris
he's
did
taking.
help, and he directed the videos too, so
Yeah.
I can give credit.
Right. That's why we have
I like
Christian
the
doing
video.
more of the camera. We may have a ray gun dance-off
Yes.
at our
Yes.
Institute Day.
I like that.
Never quite.
I think we should add breaking to the Family Fun Fest.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
Kangaroo Hop.
It's called breaking.
The next informational item is an annual presentation of our instructional materials. That's required by school code. Again, we update that every year. It's on our website and included in the packet tonight. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Thank you.
Dr. Sroka and Mrs. Guza prepared the summary of our annual restraint and timeout plan that is filed with ISB. I know, it is so fun.
So
Chris,
fun.
do you want
Fun.
to have anything else to add to flesh that out?
No, other than our plan for this upcoming school year was approved, so.
Kudos to you.
And you have to complete a plan if you do use any restraint or timeout in the district, so we have, just a small handful of times across the year that we use it, so we have to fill out the plan. And the goal for the state is to completely eliminate the use of physical restraint, timeout, so we're trying our best.
Huh.
It's a great
I
goal.
wish them luck.
It's a good goal to have.
It is.
And lastly, I shared again the enrollment and staffing update. There's no change in staffing. I updated the enrollment numbers as of Friday of last week. I was able to include them in the school scene as well. You see that we're right where we need to be. We've had a flurry of new enrollees over the last few weeks, as you'd imagine. We typically continue to see new families enroll between now and Labor Day. There are a number of families who come here from CPS, for example, and they think school starts after Labor Day. And they come in and they're surprised that we started 2 weeks ago. So we're not done with the influx of new families. We are continuing to see a number of multilingual immigrant families that we're using our wraparound supports and our liaison positions to welcome them and support them as they transition here. But as the internet knows, schedules were released Wednesday morning, and so then phones and texts and
Except
whatever was
a workaround for Tuesday.
flying around the interweb, and so we are up and ready to go for Wednesday with our new students.
I heard some pretty impressive things about middle school schedules, that there is a class with only one student enrolled.
Wow.
That was the drama at my house.
Yeah,
That she's
yeah.
the only person in the
Right.
class.
Yeah, could be.
So I think that we need
That is really low attendance.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean,
But
what
we have
the
classes
ratio-
running with one
ratio.
kid.
Yeah.
And that's a class of 2
What's the
teachers.
class?
Yeah. Oh, every class, the entire schedule. No one is in any of their classes.
None.
0 people. Just so you know.
Thanks, Mom, for sharing that publicly.
I know, she's really, I told her I was going to.
The struggle is real, and we understand. That's it, but we are ready to support
That
kids
started at
and
9:01
make new
a.m.
friends and adjust to the next school year.
That was a fun
How
24 hours.
did we find that our projections panned out to current?
It's in the
Yeah, I'm looking,
Yeah.
it seems to be, the numbers actually seem like some big variances. Actually.
yeah. Overall, we're right at that 97 or 8%. Kindergarten was under by a little bit. First grade was way high, 21 over.
That's what I was thinking.
But we hover right around that, close to that 100%. Second grade's still growing. We did surpass the 152 that we were, or 55 that we were worried about. Yeah, a little bit over, 3 kids over in 3rd grade and 6 kids over in 7th. Again, it's still growing, so some of those negative numbers we may see some final numbers coming up. But
You added a section for the second
we added a
grade.
section
we
in
added
second
the
grade.
and then that has turned out to be good that we did that.
Yeah.
Right, otherwise they would have all been 25s and above right now. Yeah, so again, it's a historical average best guess in terms of the instrument we use from Forecast 5 for those live birth projections. we're still kind of fluctuating with the post-pandemic, increased births, fewer people having kids, kind of seeing how that plays itself out 5 years later.
Okay, that takes us through all the superintendent's report. Any old business to discuss?
You know, I guess it's old as of what, a few minutes ago, but, so we're having the public hearing on the 19th, and we're moving the whole board meeting to that night then, too? Is that?
We needed to finalize that. We have to have 30 days for the hearing. So if the board chooses, we could keep our regularly scheduled board meeting and then have a special meeting on the 19th, or move the regularly scheduled meeting to the 19th and do a 2-for-1.
So I just wanted to shore things up in my calendar.
Yeah, if that works for folks, that's obviously consolidation of effort.
Do we have any issues with agenda timing and stuff?
No, this would be the only one we'd have to meet.
Alright.
So I may
folks-
not be able to be here on the 19th, and I'm not sure yet. So just wanted to.
We're talking September 19th?
Yeah.
I would prefer to have one meeting if possible.
Of
but-
course,
I
understood.
Yeah, so if the 19th doesn't work, we can look at something else, but.
September 19th instead of September 12th.
Yeah. I was actually wrong.
That works for me.
OCC.
Yeah,
Okay.
if
I knew there was
we
something
have a
going on
quorum.
the 19th. That would be a regulator exam. All right, I'm good.
2,
I'm fine.
3,
We need a
Right,
4.
4,
Yeah.
4, 5, okay.
Okay.
Should we just continue?
I think, yeah, I
19th?
yeah, I think that's fine.
Cool.
So moving on to the
Great. Awesome.
And
I'm going to plan more than one day ahead.
Okay.
He'll tell you what to do tomorrow.
I should be good.
any new business?
Just one thing on the old business. When we had met with Brad and Perillo on the LTE issue, that we had planned to get back to, thought that Brad kind of had an action item to do some work and get back to us in August.
Yeah.
Have you heard from them?
Not specifically about that. We did reconnect about all of the committee work, the shared joint board and PHEA committees. The LTE work group is still on that. It's scheduled in terms of we know that there's work that needs to be done. We don't have any dates yet in the calendar.
Okay. And then just the other thing, and maybe this would be a community relations thing, but just from the earlier discussion, right? I think that it would be I would be interested in trying to do some of that stuff with you or with whoever to kind of, and with this team here, right?
Yeah.
For us to maybe be able to meet and put together a presentation about the district and try to bring to some of these communities over the next month or two.
Yeah,
regardless of the timing of when we do the referendum.
Just
I think
community outreach
this
in
is
general.
outreach, right? That we should be. It may not, and I think we could get an idea, right? Do you feel like this is getting us traction, right? That we're building relationships. I think it'd be something good to do.
Yeah.
And definitely in partnership, right, with our community partners, right, with our friends in the audience here too.
Absolutely.
To work with them.
So we have a need for another policy committee meeting. Yay. Policy 117 was just released, and we need to schedule community relations now to sort of do exactly that, as well as talk about our fall upcoming events and those kinds of things. So I'll reach out and try to set both of those up for sometime in the next couple of weeks.
I'm so excited.
I know, you can't wait.
2 more meetings.
You can't wait. Good,
Cool.
yeah.
Thanks, man. Executive session? Anything on the agenda for executive session?
Nope.
I think we're good then.
Wow, it's so
So
early.
no executive session. There's nothing left other than, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Well,
A second.
second by Marilyn.
It's kind of difficult. difficult, but we're just not really leaving so
I think we just, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
None opposed, I think we got everyone.
Karina, Tracy, Jack.